Welcome back. They are the jewels of the Suncoast, the barrier islands, Longboat Key, Holmes Beach, Anna Maria Island, Lido Key. So beautiful, they're impossible to leave, literally. On Longboat Key, one main drag, only 2 ways on, 2 ways off, a population that swells from 5,000 during the summer to 20,000 in season. There are growing public safety concerns with that, and the state is doing a traffic study, but so far no answers, or are there? Joining us today to talk about this is ABC 7 reporter Kate Flexter, Captain Sherman Baldwin of Paradise Boat Tours, and Jean Palin, the Vice Chair of the Holmes Beach City Commission.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us. And Kate, I want to start with you because you have the perfect story that kind of describes the problem.
Right. Well, so I was trying to make it to a live shot one time. It was peak of season, and I got stuck in traffic. And not only did I miss the live shot, I was stuck in 3 hours of traffic just trying to get back to the station afterwards. So it's kind of that rush hour traffic that times a million.
And Jean, this is something that I'm sure you hear about every single day.
Every single day, particularly as a commissioner, it's when are you going to do something about this? And would that it were in our power as a city to do something about it.
Well, that's the question, because one of your colleagues was just in Kate's story who said that, you know, when something like this happens, you want to fire someone, but there's nobody to fire.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I mean, on Anna Maria Island, we have 30, 40, 50,000 people at a time, particularly on holidays and in season. On the island, or again, the same very limited 2-lane road, the length of the island. And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
I would imagine there might be some people who are watching this tonight who would say to you, you know what, you chose to live there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sure they would, but what we didn't choose to do was to continue to build right across on the mainland thousands of homes and hotels that add to the problem, nor did we choose to have an advertising effort for tourism that brings thousands of visitors. That wasn't our choice.
So at least the building and construction across the water was not something that was even part of your planning.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Captain, I want to get to you because in this you see an opportunity to relieve the traffic congestion by water taxis.
Absolutely. In fact, you know, I know there's communities across this country that would give their eye teeth to have a resource like what we have, and that's our waterways. I mean, we're blessed with that opportunity. The Intercoastal Waterway and the Manatee River in Southwest Florida are tailor-made to alleviate land-based infrastructure congestion. And by the way, one thing that I want to say is I don't believe it's just high season where we have these clogged roads. You give me a Saturday afternoon in September and we can back up on our bridges. This is a year-round real problem, and right now, you know, owning a business on Anna Maria Island, I see where it's starting to actually slow growth.
How?
Because people just can't get there in a way that makes it worthwhile, particularly our locals that like to come out for the weekend. You know, you live in Bradenton Beach or Sarasota, you come out to Anna Maria Island, it's like going to Key West. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth.
There have been these ideas about water taxis. You know, it has not come to fruition yet. There's been some issue, at least in Sarasota, about where the water taxis will dock. Mm-hmm. What's the latest with that as far as you know?
Yeah, we've been approved to put in a facility right at the 10th Street Boat Basin by the Van Wezel, and we intend to do a large-scale marine operation very soon. I mean, stay tuned for this. I mean, we have done 2.5 years of study, 2 years of being vetted by the various municipalities, at least a year with the city of Sarasota. You may remember that on February 21st, we were conditionally approved by the City Commission to move forward on finding an embarkation point for our ferry operation, and we've got that done, and now we're going back in front of the city, and we hope to have operations running shortly.
All right, we're going to just take a quick break. No traffic jams here, just a break for the weather. We'll pick up the conversation in a moment. There must be some kind of way out of here, Jimi Hendrix once sang. For all we know, he was trying to get off of Longboat Key. Joining us for more, I got you there.
You got me.
ABC 7's Kate Flexter, Captain Sherman Baldwin of Paradise Boat Tours, and Jean Palin, the Vice Chair of the Holmes Beach City Commission. I was wondering if that would play well with our demographic, but I guess it apparently does.
All along the watchtower. No,
Exactly. It's on I run to it.
Yeah.
Kate, you were telling us that this is already having an economic impact.
Well, as far as I understand, it is. On Longboat Key, restaurant owners were saying that they dealt with, dozens, maybe hundreds of cancellations during peak season because people were stuck in traffic and couldn't get to the restaurants that they needed to go to.
Right. And Jean, I guess what you were saying earlier, and this could get a lot of people mad, this seems to be a lack of long-term planning because this was not your community's decision. This was something that was happening across the water, and one might ask the question, where was the county planning?
Right. It is very frustrating, and I'm used to making people mad, but it's very frustrating as a city commissioner to see the disconnect between the worsening traffic problems on the island and islanders and tourists screaming, we don't want to come back here anymore because of these traffic problems, and then watching the county commission approve the spending by the Tourist Development Council of millions of dollars to bring more and more and more and more tourists here, and the county commission also approving new housing developments like the one that's proposed along the bay called Aqua by the Bay, which will bring thousands of new houses and a hotel, all of which are going to come to the island.
Have you brought your concerns to the county commission?
Many times.
And what's the reaction?
We don't get a reaction. We get, I would say we get lip service a lot. But what I'm impressed with is that it's the entrepreneurs like Captain Sherman.
I want to get to that in a moment because the state DOT is doing a traffic study to try to figure this all out. And, I have read that folks like yourself and other elected officials on the different barrier islands are getting frustrated that in the interim, you're not getting a lot of communication.
Getting frustrated from a lot of points of view. One, it's the second or third traffic study that's been done and nothing ever resulted from them. But also, the local officials are not being included in all of the meetings with the state about the study, when they have a lot of good information to give and a lot of feedback to give about the traffic, and they're not being included. So the frustrations are huge, and as we know, they're doing the study, and then that'll take a year, and then it'll take a year to get the results, and then here we are 2 years down the road. And it's so, from the county commission and the state's really point of view, because the state is in there also with this, they ought to be thinking a little longer term, that they're killing the golden goose, or the goose that laid the golden egg, one of those things. They're killing that by unrestricted growth, unrestricted development of tourism, pouring them onto the island without any thought to the long term.
So, Captain, you and others come up with ideas like you have to have a water taxi service. I do have one specific question, that if somebody took, your service over to the mainland, to Sarasota, they would still need transportation to get around.
Yeah, I mean, one part of this, that a water transportation, by the way, on a large scale, 149 passenger boats running like clockwork with very fast boats, so they get places quick. But once they get there, we're already discussing with iRides, which is a new service in Sarasota, and all sorts of Uber and Lyft and free ride programs, because we've got to get people to their ultimate destination. Heck, we've even reached out to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, say somebody from Anna Maria Island would like to go get, they have an annual checkup or maybe some routine procedure done, that the hospital itself would pick them up in advance.
Because there is an issue here of public safety.
And I have to laugh. I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to laugh at the Florida Department and I mean no disrespect to the FDOT, but what is the purpose of having a study about a 2-lane road? You can't go 4-lane. You can't do anything. You're not going to build a, an elevated. It's seriously, it's kind of funny to me, and yet people completely ignore the waterway, which is, the ICW, the Intracoastal Waterway, was a brainchild of George Washington, meant to move commercial traffic.
And Gina, I guess you were also saying to us that this really kind of shows what the captain is doing with his water taxi idea. This is a solution coming out of an entrepreneurial
Right.
endeavor and not out of government.
Absolutely, and he's doing the kinds of things that government should be doing. If you're going to create the demand, do something to deal with the effects of the demand. And that's not happening except from entrepreneurs. We have the people on the island who are giving free rides for tips to get to restaurants, to get people off the road. We have entrepreneurs working at it.
And we also have to raise the issue. It's not just an economic problem or a lifestyle problem. Kate, I could imagine if somebody has a medical emergency on any of these islands and it's going to take them 3 hours to get off the island, lives could be on the line.
I've interviewed actually someone in the past who said exactly that he was stuck in traffic for hours in the middle of a medical emergency. He didn't call an ambulance, but was using his own car, could not get off the island, and said it was a really scary thing. So I think that public safety definitely comes into play with this.
And Jean, you said earlier, we're killing the goose that laid the golden egg, and tourism dollars is such an integral part of our local economy here. I would imagine that this is not an issue that is not affecting other communities. We talked that you're from New England, Cape Cod. You know what it's like to get to Cape Cod on a Friday night or leave Sunday morning. But if this continues to be a problem, you would imagine that people are going to go on vacation elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and by the way, there's privately run enterprises that move a lot of people across areas as opposed to car traffic. For instance, a company where I cut my teeth on moves 1 million people a year. Our program, we're hoping to move 600,000 a year plus with it, and that would really immediately have an effect on land-based infrastructure. In addition, by the way, speaking to your good point, is that part of what we have done with our approvals is also reached out to the Coast Guard. We've also reached out to FEMA. We could very possibly be the first one on the scenes if there was a weather situation, like Bob was, follows the weather. There could be a weather situation where we'd be the first vessels or vehicles to be able to move around our area long before roads were clear.
Jean, aside from the possibility of these water taxis, if your concern is that a traffic study is not going to provide real answers just because of the landscape we're dealing with, and you believe that the county commission is not really listening to your concerns, then what do you think the answer is?
Well, I think there are a lot of possible creative answers along with using the waterways.
Absolutely.
One that I've been pushing for years with the county commission is build a parking garage at 75th and Manatee, build a parking garage at 75th and Cortez Road, and then have a shuttle service going back and forth to the island to keep cars off the island to the greatest extent possible. Have free parking in those garages, build a parking garage at Manatee Public Beach and charge a fortune for it. In other words, put incentives in place to keep the cars off the island.
Again, I'll ask you the same question I asked you before. When you have suggested these things, what kind of reaction do you get?
Sort of none. Sort of a, we wish you luck with that.
I think that's changing, Gene. I'll tell you that because, I speak to exactly what you're talking about. This road to a water ferry approval in this region started 2.5 years ago with me schlepping around with an easel and diagrams to everybody that would listen to me, from civic groups to Barrier Island elected official groups to tourist development councils to pretty much standing on the side of the corner. And yet I've seen, particularly with the Sarasota City Commission of late, I've seen a light bulb go off everybody's head when they finally have somebody with a direct marine experience. A lot of the studies, a Metropolitan Planning Organization did a 2005 water taxi study that wasn't very positive, but they didn't ever ask a captain, the marine, the navigational challenges. And when we studied it, if we said we could get you from downtown Sarasota to Bradenton Beach in 28 minutes, and then from Bradenton Beach to downtown Bradenton in 34 minutes, now that becomes feasible. That's something usable year-round, and that never changes because of the use of the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an option.
All right, you have to take. Kate, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Okay. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with final thoughts when we return. So what's the answer to the traffic jams on the barrier islands? Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. So what's the answer?
Well, I don't know the answer. It's a big issue, and it's not even just a county issue. I've been sort of county bashing sitting here. But let me say, tourism is the industry of the state of Florida, and we know that. We know that at the city level. We know it well. The problem is, if you just keep more, whether it's new houses or bringing tourists in without thinking of the effects, you're destroying that very charming little Anna Maria Island. We have lost 25% of our residents in the last 5 years, 25%. We now have only 25% of the houses on the island are homesteaded. People actually live there because of this. They come to the island because it's charming, it's old Florida, it's low-key. But with traffic...
Is there a difference between many larger communities do this kind of urban planning, but this is still a small community, maybe kind of caught in a very local ways of dealing with things?
That's certainly possible. I know I'm in the Florida League of Cities, and I'm going to a meeting next week of cities from all over Florida dealing with this same issues.
Captain, where are you in terms of your efforts in the water taxis?
We are ready to go. We are raring to go, and we will have some major announcements about that in the near future. But expect high-speed catamaran, cool in the summer, warm in the winter, able to go any kind of weather in the future of this area within months.
And Kate, again, what kind of sense did you get from other local leaders in terms of their patience in terms of dealing with this?
Well, I think their patience seems to be waning. It seems that they're depending on Florida's Department of Transportation, and of course at the state level things just take longer. That's what we found in almost any process, so I think that's what they're seeing.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Want to give you an FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. ABC 7's Kate Flexter, Captain Sherman Baldwin of Paradise Boat Tours, and Jean Palin, the Vice Chair of the Holmes Beach City Commission, all joining us tonight.